Everyone. My name is Daniel Ramos. I'm a legal officer in the Trade and Environment Division here at the WTO, and I'm also the Secretary of the Trade and Environmental Sustainability Structure Discussions, or TSD. I'll moderate this session today, which is entitled Breaking New Ground, Priorities for Trade's Next Generation, with the new young trade leaders of the WTO, the new cohort. Before we kick off with their introductions, we are very, very lucky to have the presence of another brilliant young person, Nicole Mensa, Special Assistant and Advisor to the Director General of the WTO. I've had the pleasure to work with Nicole for a few years now, and I can attest to her passion, drive, and excellence. So I'm sure she'll kick us off in a very good mood. So Nicole, please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I think you're too kind. And I'm looking, Daniel and I do COP together. So next month, or is it in 2 months, we are going to be looking like crazy people running all over Brazil, trying to do, everything related to environment and trade. But excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Forgive me because I'm down a little bit with the flu, so apologies. But it's really a distinct pleasure to introduce this panel today at the WTO Public Forum, which features our 2025 WTO Young Trade Leaders. This is the second cohort of the program. My name is Nicole Mensa, Special Assistant and Advisor on Gender to the DG. But I think perhaps I'm here today because I'm the youngest advisor in the DG's office, and so I fit the bill to speak to young trade leaders. Can you all hear me? Okay. For those of you who may not be familiar, this is, as I said, this is the second cohort of the program, which was established in 2024 to bring young people closer to the WTO. It's a truly unique program, and it's part of the WTO's outreach to our stakeholders from all over the world and from across society. We have 7 impressive candidates who were chosen out of 1,200 applicants. So the competition is really tight. I think 5 of them or 4 of them are on stage, and there are 3 seated in here today. And I met with these leaders earlier today. I have to tell you, they're brilliant. I was so impressed. So today I'm here to introduce this panel titled Breaking New Ground, Priorities for Trade's Next Generation. When I think about young people and trade, I think about DG's joke. And I'm going to put someone on the spot here. She talks often about how before she took up the job at the WTO, one of her sons was so against it, and he happens to be here today because he felt that the WTO was against people. So, sorry, but I'm putting you, shout out to you. But obviously she's here now, and she was able to convince him that the WTO was all about people, that the WTO's founding mandate was to create jobs, to improve livelihoods, and to promote sustainable development. And I think that's what we are committed to do, and we've been committed to doing under her mandate. But at the same time, even as much as I say that Oak thought the WTO was against people, I myself am an economist. And even during my time at school, although I knew about the WTO, it was only when I got here that I realized the depth of work that we're doing really to help to improve the livelihoods of people all over the world. So there's a need for the younger generation to be informed about what is happening at the WTO, and I think that has started. We have the young trade leaders. We also have our amazing young professionals who are here. Can we get a wave from the young professionals? Yeah. But today's generation is so different. Young people have grown up in a world that is fully digital, that is deeply interconnected. They've survived the pandemic, or should I say we've survived the pandemic. We're facing a climate emergency. There are rising inequalities. There's rapid technological change. And so when it comes to trade, our priorities are somewhat different. And the DG has often said that the future of trade is green, it's digital, and it's inclusive. Actually, I think for the last 3 public forums, that has been our theme. And so now we're in digital. And when we listen to young people, these 3 priorities come out loud and clear. They want greener trade, because climate change is the defining challenge of our time. They want more efficient trade, more digital trade, because we know that innovation and AI can unlock opportunities for all. And they also want more inclusive trade. Opportunities should not just depend on gender, geography, or size of economy. So at the WTO, as I said, this vision is already shaping our agenda. We've placed sustainability, digital transformation, and inclusiveness at the heart of all the work that we do. I'll highlight 3 examples. On digital and AI, today we already released our report, Making Trade and AI Work Together for the Benefit of All. And it explores how AI can help lower trade costs, improve supply chain efficiency, and create new opportunities for SMEs and developing countries. I hope you all got a copy of the report, so we'll all study it together this weekend. On inclusion, this last year, together with the ITC, we launched the Women Exporters in the Digital Economy Fund. This is one that I'm especially proud of because I co-manage the fund with my colleagues at the ITC. It's a $50 million fund that supports women entrepreneurs in developing countries to use digital tools and platforms to reach global markets. We are operating in 4 countries now. This is just the first phase. So it's Jordan, Nigeria, Mongolia, and the Dominican Republic. We launched in Nigeria and Mongolia last month, and over 200 women businesses are benefiting, receiving grants of up to $30,000 and technical assistance for about 18 months. So really, this is kind of the action that we're taking. Then on green trade, members are increasingly engaging in discussions on how trade can support climate action, from facilitating access to environmental goods and services to strengthening supply chains for clean energy technologies. But I'll let Daniel tell you more about that when he starts. But there is still so much more to be done. There's a role for young people here. One of the stories I laugh at was that last year, one of the journalists who came to meet with the DG, after we had the meeting, asked me that, Nicole, you're so young, how can you be an advisor in the DG's office? So they asked me what I did, and I kind of explained, and when I finished, she said, okay, I'm sorry, now I see that young people do have quite a lot to add. So young people, we do have, we have a lot to add, and that is kind of my advice for the YPs, that there's so much that we can do, there's so much that we can say. We bring in so many fresh ideas on trade, on AI, on green technology, and on digital. So the future really is ours. And I know that the young trade leaders are going back home this weekend. I hope you will continue the discussions in your communities and in your countries. Last year's group came up with so many new ideas. I think they had a booklet that they published, and so we're looking forward to even more from you. And so with that, I just say thank you. We're so excited to have you here, and we're excited to listen to you today, and I know that you have so much to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. So starting very well. I love that now I know the origin story for my best quote from the DG, that trade is about people. I'm so happy that I know now. I won't be using the backstory, but I'll continue to use this quote because it's so good. Now, as Nicole said, we have 7 brilliant young trade leaders here. We want you to meet them all, but as you can see, we only have space for 5 people, and I'm sorry, I'm occupying one of these chairs. So what we did, we split the session in 2. So we'll first hear from the 4 first young trade leaders, and then we'll listen from the other 3. And I'll be opening the floor, so I'll be asking questions to them on their experience, on their views for the future. And before we move to the next session with the other 3, you have an opportunity to ask questions. So please keep that in mind as they speak. If there's something that you would like to drill down further into, we'll have a little bit of time. Okay? So what I'll do now is that enough for me. Now it's time to introduce our first 4 young trade leaders, Atia, Caro, Alexandra, and Arushi. So Atia, if I can start with you, please introduce yourself, just full name and country, and then we move to the others, and I'll ask questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Atia Al-Hamout, and I'm from Ukraine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caro Harutyunyan. I'm from Armenia. I'm Alexandra Case, and I'm from the United States.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Arshi Srivastav, and I'm from India.
Fantastic. Okay. Now that they heard your voices, at least for the first time, let's go to the questions. So first round of questions. Asia, if I may, I'll start with you. As you said, you're from Ukraine, but living in Germany for the past 3 years and finishing our bachelor's in international relations. So when we talked, you told me you developed a strong interest in the energy transition, how civil societies engages in international trade, and how trade can support peace through your studies and professional experience. Could you share a bit more about that, and how do you think digital trade can help shape your region's green transition and future?
Of course, thank you very much for the question. And I think I would like to start with a bit of engagement with all of you. I will ask you a question, and I will mainly look at people who do not look young. Please raise your hand in case today you have interacted with more than 3 young people at the forum. That's great. This is some amount. And I think that I wanted to ask this question to highlight how inclusion and collaboration is very important in digital trade. I think that through my experience of working and researching mainly in renewable energy transition in both Germany and Ukraine, I came to realize that this is a sector where without a strong collaboration and systematic building of trust, no progress is likely to be made. And I think that at this point, I would like to share about how all of you can get more engaged with renewable energy transition and with building resilience in my home country, Ukraine, but also in the region that I want to be represented. This is Eastern Europe and Western Balkans. And to start off, I would like to give a bit of context. First of all, in Ukraine, the IT services make the second largest proportion of GDP after agriculture. And I find it fascinating because after the start of the Russian full-scale invasion, this was the only sector that actually grew up and did not fall and started to develop. The reason is that digital trade is resilient. It makes sure that the production or the economy is not dependent on the physical infrastructure that got damaged during the wartime. Second context part that I wanted to share is that Ukraine's economy is in fact consistent of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. This means that 98% of all of the companies are small and medium-sized, which is impressive because this means that actually the startups are those driving the economy in the wartime. The reason I told this is that I think that there are 2 pillars in which digital trade is useful. So the first one is building resilience, which means for us that the digitalization and digital trade in each economic sphere makes sure that we do not only grow economically, but we also ensure the human security by the fact that innovation is brought in the health, in the medicine sectors, and in the sectors that are critical for the well-being of people in such a difficult situation. Digital trade is one of the most important and driving factors in the way economy can grow, which we can see in the example of Ukraine. And bringing this to the region overall, I think that this is also important for Eastern Europe and Western Balkans because all of the countries there, or majority of countries there, are aiming for European integrations. Countries like Bosnia are aiming for the WTO membership, and overall digital trade is a tool for them to have the economics of scale and develop. The second pillar where digital trade proves it's important is renewable energy transition, which I wanted to talk about. The reason it is important to focus on it now and not leave it for later, for when it's stable or when it's more secure, is because if we want to have renewable energy transition in 20 years or in 10 years, we have to start now because this is the industry where building up the infrastructure and building up capacity simply takes time. It is an area where you need to have the trial and error in digital trade to make sure that it will work at the end. What it ensures is the lower barrier of entry to all of the startups and small entrepreneurs that I have mentioned, and more transparency and data safety, which is important for the European integration of the region and overall the economic growth. But I want this panel to be about action, not only about challenges. So personally, from my side in the program, I will try to I will make sure to organize an event that will connect the Western European business side to the Eastern Europe and the Western Balkans youth, to make sure that we actually have the communication that establishes the trust needed for investment, needed for collaboration. This will hopefully become a space for them to engage with one another. But I also have some homework for each of you. First of all, during the forum, today and tomorrow, try to speak with at least 3 young people and try to not only ask them what they are doing or ask something about themselves, but try to specifically find an area where you can collaborate. It can be a small research project. It can be a small presentation in their university. It can be that the young person joins your company and does some consultancy work. Just try to engage with them, because this forum has to be an opportunity not to engage among the same actors, like policymakers engage to policymakers, but rather to combine all of these spheres of society together. And secondly, if you're a business, then try to get more interested in Eastern Europe and Western Balkans and try to make sure that this trust is actually established, that all of the questions you might feel are risky or financial burden to you are actually resolved. I think that from research side, the research can also be of use, because then if we have more information about these countries and more analysis of how to overcome the current risks associated, then we will make sure that the energy transitions not only happens in Western Europe and in the developed world, but also in the countries that are very, very close nearby, that are easy to connect to infrastructure, but that require more effort than what we have here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Atia. I think we started very well. Nicole, I think we will need to update our list of innovative things, because now people come to listen to a panel and get back with homework to do, which is fantastic. We already started very well. Thank you, Atia. So moving now to Carol. Carol, you are a sophomore at Northwestern University, where you study economics and political science. You mentioned to me about how growing up in Armenia, a landlocked country, shaped your view that isolation costs more than opportunity. From your perspective, how do you see international trade and the opportunities created by digitalization serving as a tool to strengthen security and lasting peace in your region, but also globally?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I'm very honored to be here and to be part of this important dialogue and to learn from my fellow young trade leaders about the ways that we can build more interconnected and resilient global trading system. To come back to your question, I believe that, as you mentioned, isolation costs more than opportunity. It costs more than lost revenues. I believe that isolation costs sovereignty. And a person who grew up in Armenia, which is a landlocked country, I've seen the negative impacts of this firsthand, personally. And to give you more context about Armenia, Armenia's 2 borders with Turkey and Azerbaijan are closed now. And that's why, there's only, Armenia mainly relies on a single trade route that runs through Georgia to Russia, even though another border is open with Iran, but most of the trade is being done with Russia. And this dependence is not about only economic weakness. I believe that depending on a single route constrains our independence, and it constrains countries' independence, because when your prosperity relies solely on a single corridor, it means that you cannot fully act according to your national interest, and it is inevitably limited. And at the same time, the countries that you rely on can use this as a tool for manipulation and further pressure. And for farmers, or for people living in Armenia, and for small businesses, this also meant them watching their products and crops losing their value, not because of their quality, but because the access to global markets and fair trade was just beyond their reach. but I am very happy that recent peace talks with Azerbaijan has been very successful, and I think the main reason for that is because the two countries have realized that there's a really big potential of collaboration for trade, and I believe that in the future we'll be able to avoid the conflict in South Caucasus. And I think one important aspect of international trade is that its ability to foster peace and stability in conflicting regions, in particular, for example, South Caucasus, where I am from, and I think this is a really huge advantage, and we all should take advantage of this important aspect of international trade. And to talk about how digitalization can help us, I think it provides really good potential because, for example, border villages or people living in near the borders, or like refugees who traditionally lacked access to global markets, now because of technological advancements can easily access these markets, and they can sell their products relatively in a lower price, and this gives them a competitive edge over other small businesses. So, and another point that I would like to mention regarding digitalization is that it also helps to increase transparency in customs, in logistics, and I believe this can reduce corruption. Also, this can build trust within the society and also between neighboring states. So I think international trade, to conclude, I believe that international trade has a huge potential for bringing peace to regions that have been traditionally stuck in conflict, and especially digitalization and technological advancements can help us to achieve these goals easier. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. This is so interesting. You know, if anyone is at the beach and wants to have a nice, easy reading, go back to the history of negotiations of the GATT in 1945, 1946, and you see there's a lot of linkages between trade and stability and peace, and I think there's a Nobel Peace Prize linked to that as well. So if you don't have anything else to read, a light reading is fantastic, and it's so interesting that we now heard already how digital trade can help build or continue resilience, but also, you know, these other opportunities and how it relates to this issue. So it's quite interesting. We started very well. If we may now move to Alexandra. Alexandra, you are a senior international trade specialist at a law firm in DC. You're sharing with us that with trade being the front page news nowadays, you were doubly inspired to explore further how the WTO or what the WTO has to offer and the value it adds to the global system. So given your previous interactions with American workers and visits to steel plants, etc., what kinds of policies or frameworks do you think would be useful to make international trade more equitable, responsive to global challenges, including socio-economic concerns?
Thank you for the question, and I want to thank everyone for coming to this panel. It's directly supporting young people, and I know I'm not speaking for myself when I say it's a dream come true to be here. So I'm very excited to share my thoughts and our thoughts. So to begin, as a part of my work in Washington, I've had the chance to visit a lot of major manufacturing plants in the United States and to work directly on cases relating to manufacturing in the United States. And what has struck me most by these visits is the pride that workers carry in their craft. For them, work is not just a job, it's part of their identity, it's intergenerational, and a lot of times part of their families, and I think it's really important to the identities that communities kind of construct their thoughts upon. So when I actually first came to the WTO the other day, Claire took me to Room A, which is just down the hall, and on the walls you get to see depictions of American manufacturing. And I think for me that's not just decoration in a room, but I think it's a reminder of the industries that have defined trade law debates. It's the industries that resulted in the creation of the European Union. It's created the WTO, and I think these profound movements are important to ground ourselves upon when we think about the future of the WTO. So in a lot of my plant visits, I see firsthand how trade policy directly impacts people. It has real tangible effects. Import competition could result in the closure of a plant that could devastate a community. They could lose their job and families could not be able to put food on the table. So I think this experience has really pushed me, as was described earlier, to center trade around people and to think about how these policies directly impact the communities that we all come from. So while I won't get into the politics of the United States, I think one assessment is really quite simple, that trade is about making sure that people are able to put food on the table, are able to provide for their families, and to feel safe and secure in their homes. And I don't think that this should be a divisive issue. I think this is a grounding principle that is uniting every single country that is a member of this organization, and it's something that we should use as a principle when negotiating future reforms. So when thinking about this, one example that comes to mind often when it comes to labor rights is actually from the US Mexico-Canada trade agreement, the USMCA, which I think is actually a fantastic agreement to look at when it comes to digital trade issues. And one that I think about when it comes to labor rights, where it's actually quite advanced, is the rapid response mechanism, which allows workers to raise factory-specific complaints when their rights are violated against member countries, and they can thus be investigated and there can be penalties. It's not perfect. I'm not going to claim the USMCA is an example of international trade agreement, but I think it shows that we can do more to open markets and uphold labor rights. So I think when thinking about what the WTO can do in this space, labor standards have historically been a very sensitive topic, but I think that we can be doing more to speak about progress in this space. There's a middle ground. We can have more transparency, more cooperation, and I think more platforms for worker voices in this institution. This building actually was the ILO, so I think having that background and kind of respect for the building itself and the workers that create this field, that are driving the industries that we are listening to today on panels, is really important. And having value for kind of how these labor impacts will drive sustainability is deeply important, and I think digital tools could be especially powerful here. So to me, equitable trade is not really just about redistributing the gains with anti-dumping or countervailing duties or trade remedies or safeguards or anything along those lines. It's truly about embracing the vision of workers and what we can do to support them in driving the sustainable future. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really like that putting the emphasis on, the pride that we get from our labor, from our work. And the way I like to complete what the DG says, that trade is about people, is that I really think it's how we are proud of what we do. So it's how we exchange with people we don't even know what we've done. And that there has to be a way to make that more visible. Because then you can really understand what you're exchanging. You're exchanging your efforts, right? The pride that you have on it. So that's very interesting. Now moving to Arushi, your work focused on trade and sustainability, especially on enforcement challenges related to the fish subsidies agreement, which is very topical this week for some reason. You also mentioned how digital tools were revolutionizing trade in India with the UPI payment scheme. So could you share a bit more about these interests and how digital solutions help integrate parts of the societies, SMEs, etc.?
Yeah, thank you. Well, yes, like you said, the Fisheries Subsidies Agreement, which was ratified and is now in force from a few days ago, was a kind of critical part of my dissertation at undergraduate level, where I was critically analyzing the agreement and looking at how enforcement would look like in a practical sense. Before I go more into that, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Tim, Claire, and Bernie, who really, we can see how much effort you guys put into not only organizing, this week for us, but also in, starting this whole scheme. I think I can speak on behalf of all of us young trade leaders when I say that we are all extremely grateful for this opportunity and also to get to be here. So thank you so much. To go to the question that you asked, Daniel, my work so far has really focused on the intersection of international trade rules, sustainability, and inclusion, and sometimes how international trade agreements, which have such positive impacts, can also fall short when it comes to developing countries. There are a lot of developing countries and least developed countries which don't really have the same kind of mechanisms and enforcement and surveillance capacity that stronger developed economies and stronger developing economies and developed states have. So while these agreements a lot of times try to make it equitable, a lot of times when it comes to enforcement on the ground, it makes it really difficult. And I think a very good example of that is my dissertation, which looked at the agreement of fisheries subsidies. In that project, I noticed that weaker states with weaker monitoring and surveillance capacity find it much harder to ensure compliance with the provisions, specifically when it comes to noting catch count, and when it comes to looking at port docking and kind of stuff like that. Looking at the second part of your question, which focused on the UPI payment scheme in India. Growing up in India, I feel that I've been able to see firsthand the importance of digital trade and the importance of being able to share digital knowledge. I spent a very substantive amount of my life in the UK, and I've noticed that when knowledge is shared, it is beneficial for everyone. In the last decade, India has been able to connect more than 1 million previously excluded individuals into more formal financial networks. This includes artisanal workers, it includes farmers, it includes street vendors, and all of these people are now able to very readily accept QR codes to receive payments with each other directly. This is really beneficial because it not only gives these workers access to a new clientele altogether, but it also creates a financial footprint for them, which really makes it easier for them to be able to access loans, access credit, and to also link into newer supply chains that they may previously not have been able to access. And it increases the way that they can meaningfully participate in e-commerce with each other, especially when digital trade and the sharing of technology is such a big issue in today's day and age.
Sick. Thank you so much. So you heard them on the first round of questions, and you quickly forget how young these people are because you have so much to say. It's fantastic. I will give you a challenge now because we're a bit behind time. So I'll give you 1 minute each to answer a more forward-looking question, more related to the program itself. So could you summarize in 1 minute some of your concrete ideas of what you do this next year as a young trade leader to help address these challenges, these interesting things that you raised? So if you can start with you, Atia, please.
Of course, thank you. And I think that to add to this, we also probably encourage all of you to get in touch with us in case you find the idea great or in case you see a way to contribute. From my side, we will be organizing a hackathon which focuses on bringing together young people from Eastern Europe and Western Balkans together with the Western European business that has the capacity to invest to make sure that the startups from the region are actually developing. I came up with this idea because I noticed that a lot of my friends in Ukraine, and at some point me myself, were thinking about opening a startup. And since there are really many of us, and again, 98% of the Ukrainian companies are small and medium-sized, then a lot of people are looking for such opportunities to collaborate. And especially in the fields that are long-term looking, we actually need this kind of building of trust and bridging the gap of interaction between business and young people. And additionally to that, I'm also planning to organize a podcast about trade in Ukrainian language to make sure that young people know more about it and engage with institutions like WTO a lot more.
Very good. Very interesting. Carol?
Yep. So as you already mentioned, I studied Northwestern University, which is located just outside of Chicago. So I'm part of a committee that is gonna organize the Youth and Peace Building Symposium this November, and we want to talk about how youth can be more engaged in a peace talks, and I think international trade aspect would be an important element of this symposium. Additionally, I am working with a local Chicago-based organization that is trying to help Chicago suburban communities to implement sustainable practices to decarbonization practices. So I also want to explore and learn how we can implement more sustainable practices in trade. And also I would like to organize a platform and be part of an initiation that can bring youth from my region, because most of the time the officials, as we know, they engage in peace dialogue, but I think the population, the society should know each other more in order to have a concrete peace. So if I can bring youth from my region together and discuss some ways that we can engage together, that would be also great. So these are the ideas and fields that I'm hoping to engage in during the next year. Thank you.
Very good. Fantastic. Okay. Alexandra, please.
Sure. As an American in this tense time period, I view it as my responsibility in this position as an American to bring awareness back home about the role the WTO can play in raising labor standards and helping industries in the United States. So in that theme, a lot of the work that I'm going to be doing is focusing basic education. So I'm hoping to host many events, particularly with small and medium-sized enterprises back at home, and also with youth back at home to help them understand what the WTO can offer. And then I'm also hoping to be publishing. I'm going to be working actually with a colleague, a young professional in trade, to be doing a podcast that will be raising awareness about the tariff infrastructure in the United States and what businesses can do to mitigate tariffs, and hopefully to use labor mechanisms to help workers.
Good. And Arushi?
So I think for me, working on such a large research project that is so relevant today, I really realized that a lot of the people who are excluded from being able to benefit from an agreement like the Agreement on Fishery Subsidies is artisanal workers, or it's artisanal fishermen who may not have the same kind of capacity that bigger fishing fleets do to be able to have, count catches and to be able to monitor and survey how much they're actually fishing. And it really made me realize that I think a lot of what I want to focus on is to create a space where local voices, not just fishermen, but local voices in a variety of areas, small businesses, MSMEs, can really feed directly into global conversations on international trade. Through the public forum, we hear what businesses have to say, and through a dialogue with delegations, we hear what states are thinking and how they're feeling. But I think that everyday people who are directly affected by trade don't actually have a space where they can come and talk about the issues that they're facing. And I think that is something that I would like to work towards during my time with the WTO this year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So now it's your opportunity. As I said, we are a bit behind, but I think we can get one or two questions, if there are any, from the audience to these brilliant young people. There are no takers. I will move on. So if we can give a round of applause to our young trade leaders. And I will ask now the next three young trade leaders to come here to the podium, please. We're doing a little musical chairs here. And please come as close to me as possible so I don't break my neck. That's fine. There's no need to follow a specific order. Okay, so as we did for your colleagues, I will ask you to introduce yourselves, name and country only, and then I'll go to the questions. Please,
okay.
Alexa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alexa Hishima, and I come from Rwanda.
Hi, everyone. Oh, this is loud.
Yeah.
I'm Serena Indija Costa, and I'm half Brazilian, half Argentine.
Hi everyone, my name is Paola and I come from Bolivia.
Very good. So we've talked already about some of the priorities and challenges to making trade more inclusive across society and throughout the world. In this section now, we are going to talk more specifically about some of the key opportunities to help drive the transformation of the global economy to better serve the needs of people today and tomorrow. So we'll look at how digital trade can empower marginalized peoples, indigenous peoples, and women, and explore ways to ensure their voices are heard in decision-making processes. So we'll start with Paola. You are an indigenous young leader from Bolivia, and you work right at the crossroads of sustainability, digitalization, and supply chains. So how do you see digital tools helping to make global trade framework more inclusive and climate-friendly, especially for indigenous communities and young people in Latin America?
Thank you. So nice to meet you, everyone. We are really happy to have you all here. We see young people, people from different ages. So Ayelianchu, that means, for example, if you have to learn something new here, say that Ayelianchu means hello in Quechua. So take that into account. So could you imagine how many people or how much of the population in Bolivia is indigenous? Okay, many of you say yes, many of you know. 50% of the population identify as indigenous people in Bolivia, and this happened a lot in the Latin American region. So, I came from Bolivia, and I believe that AI and MLA and ML are incredible and are crucial and are inevitable, so that are transforming how we trade faster than ever. But the question is, who is part of the future of the global trade? First, I think that indigenous knowledge are part of the global trade in general. I'm taking the words of the DG that we met before, and she said that the indigenous knowledge has been part of the global trade in the WTO agreements behind scenes, but is not recognized. And for that, I think that there are many ways in which technology could help to get the voices of indigenous here in the agreements. I have seen many initiatives in my region where applications powered by AI and MLAs are taken into the indigenous communities to take the inputs from indigenous and analyze the data and put the data into the general frameworks. But there is a clear challenge in Latin America. Could you imagine which one? Digital divide. I know that digital divide is critical, but also it's a maybe responsibility or a challenge that member or country parties need to confront, yes, but there is a support needed from all the different organizations that work in the regional level. Second, I think that technology could help a lot to the identification and the valorization of the indigenous products. This, what I'm wearing, is a mantilla in Spanish, and this comes from the Quechua community. And every product and good that is traded in the global supply chains that comes from indigenous cultures have to say a story, tell us something about the Asian knowledge that we have and the increase. And thanks to the digitalization, I think that labeling the products and increasing all the traceability could help us to understand better the value chains of indigenous products, and therefore we could help to increase the incomes of indigenous entrepreneurs. Third, I think that technology is crucial to empower the communities. I work as an engineer in a digital startup led by youth in Bolivia that is called DeltaX, and in DeltaX we have an interesting use case. We have developed a WhatsApp bot and the GPS technology, where we have an interesting use case with a sugar mill, where we bring this WhatsApp bot to the indigenous and local farmers, and they could have in real time a real status of what is the quality of the sugar cane when it arrives to the sugar mill. And you could say, Paula, why is that important, the quality of the sugar canes? The sugar cane is really important, and the quality, because it depends on how much you are paid as a local farmer. And thanks to that increase in the traceability, they are able to have more incomes, and it's a fair trade. Just to end, I think that digitalization is crucial, and young people in Latin America are demonstrating that digital startups are empowering all the sectors and all the global trade. And I will do a call for the different organizations here in Latin that are part of this public forum, but also from all the regions, to open the spaces and give funding and fair opportunity markets to indigenous, but also to young innovators in general, because we are not only the present or the future, what is called here, but also the present because we are doing things. So thank you.
That's fascinating. I love the concrete example of the sugar cane prize, because it's true. It's based on the quality of or how it is rated, and also maybe Tim, we're getting a lot of work, of our homework for us as well, because we heard how the public forum can also be a space for workers, for indigenous people to also speak, to people, from maybe communities that are not exposed to trade, and maybe there's a digital way of somehow them participating as well in the public forum. So this is fascinating. Moving on now to Serena, if we can. You've recently graduated from 2 master degrees, and your experience across 9 countries gives you a unique lens into global trade. Still, when we were talking, you told us how trade seemed like a very far idea, not really within reach. And tell us, how do you see technological developments like AI or other digital tools shaping the future of trade in your region and hopefully making it less out of reach for young people like yourself?
Thank you for the question. When I think about AI, I think about its potential to democratize trade. And when I think about that, one of the first things that comes to mind are all of these examples in Latin America. Just take one, Simply Route. It's a Chilean startup that helps small companies and bigger ones, bigger names that we all know about, to optimize their delivery routes. And this is just one example of many of how all these AI systems are shaping who trades and how they do it. According to the WTO, AI will contribute trillions of dollars to the global economy. In fact, if we zoom in into LATAM, the GDP might grow by 5% by the year 2030. But this is all numbers, and we should look beyond numbers, because AI has is a bigger thing, and it can just transform trade. It can democratize trade for everyone. We have to be honest about our starting point in Latin America. We have limited STEM investment. We have informal labor markets. We have big digital divides, as Paula mentioned. And all these challenges can then be turned into opportunities where AI can help us leapfrog in some way or another. So I just want to share a couple of ideas on how AI is helping Latin America. Firstly, AI is reducing costs, especially in Brazil, and the complexities we might see surrounding trade. And I'm not talking about efficiency only, I'm talking about accessibility. I'm talking about AI streaming logistics. I'm talking about automating customs. I'm talking about optimizing supply chains. And this is particularly beneficial for small companies and SMEs. So if you just look at Colombia, for example, which is another country in the region, only 6% of firms there use AI. And those that do really benefit from it. And this just shows how it's really important to make AI accessible for all these little SMEs that are in the region. Secondly, AI is speeding the growth of digitally delivered services. And here again, I'm saying education, healthcare, financial services, we can all think about these things. And this is really helping to not only shift what LATAM can export to the outside world, but also making sure that these services can reach our several communities that might be a bit more isolated in all our different countries in Latin America. And again, there's plenty of examples. We have Blip, might be one of the well-known ones, which enables customer service through Instagram or WhatsApp or other apps. But we can also talk about financial inclusion and the big system in Brazil, which maybe you know, which already allowed 42 million transactions in 2023, and this is just growing. Thirdly, AI can overcome language barriers. And Paula already touched a bit on this. This is not only about translation, one might say, but about preserving cultural identity while also making sure that we're enabling different participants into the trade system. We have to be careful, and again, Paula already hinted at this, which is some languages like Quechua and Guarani are actually gaining tractions where others are still lagging behind. Fourthly, AI can really bring innovation in different sectors in LATAM, which are incredibly important. And again, agriculture, manufacturing, renewable energy are just some of the highlights. just if we look at some statistics, which I was checking this morning, there's close to 500 agri-tech startups in the whole of Latin America. Half of those were created in the last 4 years. And this for me is impressive. My own country, Brazil, has more than half of these startups. And Argentina comes in second with 23% of these. And again, AI is enabling LATAM to become a lot more competitive at a global scale. And this is great. But we need to keep in mind that these innovation ecosystems have to be inclusive and actually address local challenges, not just exporting AI from the global north, one might say. And then lastly, AI can also support greener trade. And again, I'm talking about optimizing supply chains, but not in just an environmentally conscious way, but also to meet new market demands. And I kind of want to end on a bit of a word of caution. I'm not saying here that AI is a magic bullet, because it's not. Its disruptive powers don't necessarily have to be universally positive. There's a risk of widening trade imbalances. There's a risk of protectionism. There's many, many risks. But again, the question isn't whether AI is going to change trade right now, because it already is. The question is whether this transformation would actually open up opportunities for Latin America and other regions across the world, or simply create new forms of exclusion. And again, here's where young voices really come into play. We are crucial, because we are the generation who's going to live with AI for the rest of our careers, the rest of our lives. And so we really need to make sure that AI is developed inclusively, ethically, and that it truly helps to democratize trade in the long term. Thank you.
So interesting, so many ideas out there, and one that picked up my mind clearly, and it links to what Paola was saying, is that sometimes we overlook how apparently simple things can be really blockers to connecting people, and in this case, people that could be trading, like language barriers or access to microfinance just to make the trade work. And I think some of you might already have been in this situation. I have been, where you get in a hotel and now the communication is all done through, there's these little things that they put. You speak in English and the person speaks in their language, and then it translates automatically. So it's fantastic, the ideas that both of you guys brought, that, yeah, well, if we can use the technology to also facilitate trade, then you might have less costs, not necessarily only have to deal with the gatekeepers of trade, the big players. So this is fascinating. Thank you. Alexa, now turning to you. You are a senior business analyst at BDO East Africa and have worked with SMEs in Rwanda and represented youth and women in regional and global forums. From your perspective, what tools or policies are most important to make trade more inclusive, especially under frameworks like the AFCFTA, EEA, and the WTO?
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to all my fellow young trade leaders who have come before me. The good thing about coming last is that you just paraphrase what everybody said and contextualize it, so nothing new you're about to hear. I would like to start by thanking the WTO for giving us this platform, where as young trade leaders, we come to bring in the, if I can use the informal word, vibes in the trading system. And also to thank the team, Claire, Bernie, and everyone else, and as well as Daniel, you've really done a big work as we're organizing this panel, and all of you for being here to listen to us and to work with us as well. I would like to take the math teacher lenses and start with the numbers. And I just want to start by saying that 1 in 5 working age Africans is likely to start a business. And out of this, 70% of them are mostly women who are mainly trading informally. And while these numbers are very interesting, because we also see the same trend in other developing regions around the world, the issue is that statistics also shows that most of these businesses, actually more than 50%, are likely to fail in the first year. I'm one of those businesses that have failed in the first year. So the question now is, why do they fail? Why is it that we are starting businesses with so much enthusiasm and then fail so fast? There are many reasons, but the main ones are policies and access to market. For a product or service-based business, every customer counts and is vital to the survival of the MSME, the business. But in the world full of competition, customer presence might not be enough to help these businesses thrive. So the only option then is to help these businesses, or let me use the word MSMEs moving forward, access new markets on trade, on time and with ease. Frameworks like the African Continental Free Trade Area, as well as the Agreement on European Economic Area, as well as the WTO, are already designed to make this possible. But the problem now is the young people who are at the forefront of these businesses are not properly informed of these frameworks, so then they're not able to fully exploit the opportunities that are already existing. So if I'm to answer your question on like what tools would I recommend, starting with where we are here without going far, the WTO Public Forum. This is a great opportunity, and as young trade leaders particularly, it's showing that WTO is positioned in a place where, as a champion for inclusivity, and we've seen that many other frameworks such as the AFCFTA Youth Champion and the EEA Youth Share Project are also following the same path. And so having places like this is very critical to disseminate what these frameworks are all about. And also talking about AI that my colleagues have talked about a lot. As I said, I'm just paraphrasing. Earlier, the World Trade Report 2025 was launched, and we heard how 40% of how AI is going to amplify 40% of trade by 2040, and this is very incredible. I'm sure most of you here use AI on a daily basis. The famous ChatGPT, where you can ask any question. We have the Perplexity that's very good at research, and we have Manus for presentations. A lot of AIs that I'm still discovering AIs every day. I think it's also important that we have a trade-specific AI. So an AI that can be developed to help youth answer trade-related questions and give them constructive information and resource specific to their context, countries, and regions. And moving to the policy side, we need to ensure that trade regulations and policies are stable, predictable, and sustainable, because uncertainty doesn't help anyone. And beyond including youth voices in policy making, stakeholders need to understand that sustainability in policies helps MSMEs take risks and loans that are vital for business growth. So if all these tools and policies are executed together, in coming years, we will see more successes among youth and women-led MSMEs in Africa and around the world, and they're being job creators and industry players and less people failing.
Fantastic. A trade chatbot that could answer questions.
Exactly.
Maybe what is the tariff to export, or what do I have to, what certification I need. We were talking about labels.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Hopefully someone can contact you afterwards and make it happen. This is very good. And also, doesn't mean anything, but I failed through business as well. I mean, and then I decided to be a boring, international civil servant. But yeah, it helped me as well grow and learn what works.
It's all about the lessons.
It's all about the lessons. It's all about moving forward and growing. So thank you very much. Very interesting. So what I'll do now is that I'll ask you to do the same as your colleagues, your fellow young trade leaders, and we can start with you, Alexa, and go on the reverse order. What is 1-2 things that you think about now doing in this next year as a young trade leader to address some of the issues that you raised?
Thank you. I'm looking at it in 2 ways. First of all, I work with MSMEs most of the time, and I'm looking at a trade accelerator program that will help youth and women-led MSMEs have access technical and financial support that can help them access international markets, so that we continue solving the issue of access to markets. And earlier we heard Nicole, that when she talked about the Wade Fund, I've also read a bit about it, and it's initiatives like this that are really critical and important for us to continue providing the technical support and the financial support that businesses need. I'm also looking at a young trade society, where starting with my fellow colleagues, young trade leaders, where we can continue to advocate about the work that the WTO is doing, different frameworks are doing around trade, and the support that is available for young MSMEs. We've learned so much over the past few days that we've been here, and it will be very important for us to trickle down that knowledge into our communities through advocacy, through capacity building, through trainings, etc. Thank you.
Hi. So, again, my turn. I think for a lot of young Latin Americans, trade is abstract, is something that's inaccessible, you cannot reach. I'm not gonna lie, as you mentioned before, that was me not super long ago. But now I learned that trade is about human opportunity, and that is key. So that's one of my main pillars that I want to convey in all of the events that I'll do in the future. So I'm planning a lot of in-person and online events with W2 professionals, trade negotiators, and practitioners in the trade field for them to connect with young people, students at universities, and have real one-to-one conversations about what trade is really about. Secondly, I really want to coordinate with several Latin American delegations, which are based all across Europe, and create little working sessions and panels where, again, they can discuss and collaborate and hopefully come up with some new cool ideas, some trade solutions for the region. And thirdly, and I'm pretty sure Paul is going to also touch on this, we're organizing a very little youth consultation focused on the Latino perspective, especially when it comes to trade and climate change, and especially because, as we all know, COP30 is coming up in my home country, Brazil. So I'm sure she'll be able to chip in more on this, but we're very excited, so stay tuned.
Thank you, Serena. Now, Paola, please.
Thank you, Serena, for giving the context. Currently, we're going to finish this session, Daniel, and we are going to have a clear meeting right now because we have the first step for the WTO. That's amazing. And Natia was saying that this is driver in action. So we will contact the WTO because we are going to do a position from with different young people from Latin America and different global spaces that are experts in climate, but they want to shape the future of the global trade. And we want to present this global position to the WTO as input for the mission that the WTO will have in COP30 happening in our region, Latin America, and specifically in Brazil. But that is something that we are going to do. The second thing that I want to focus on is in indigenous communities. And we have all said that mostly in developing countries and LDCs, the literacy gap in global trade is giant, but in indigenous communities is more difficult. So I have been talking with some of you that are here from the organizations, but also if you want to be part of this, I'm gonna create a fellowship, mainly in Bolivia as a pilot project to see how indigenous could engage more in global trade, and they could know more about trade, but also they could open markets with their products in my region and specifically in my country. And the third thing that I'm gonna maybe focus more is about literacy, but focusing in global youth from Bolivia that are youth entrepreneurs working right now, and that they have a lot of energy, but again, we have lack of knowledge. But this may be more focused in my country because we have many challenges that we need to solve, more related with policy, but I want to work with them. These are some things that we are doing, so I want to close this part with a message with all the organization members and parties that will hear this opportunity or the projects that we are developing as young trade leaders to try to interact with us. So leave us your number because we want to work with you. We need the support of every organizations in every country because we have amazing ideas, but we can do it alone. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I have to say this let's say, climate message from young people to the WTO, I'm sure the DG will love this. And I know there are a few delegates here. Don't be surprised if she brings it up and say, the young people are telling you to do this. So yeah, I'm sure it will have an impact. So thank you again. It's the moment now again for opportunity for you, and don't be shy, and you can even ask for any of the young trade leaders. I'll make sure that, so I will bring the microphone, I think there, it's easier. The originator of the people.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to all the panelists, and thank you for this organization of bringing together young people from across the world. I feel compelled to speak because I was called out at the beginning of this event. So what I wanted to say is my name is Okechukwu Iwala, Oak for short. I'm a people person. So that is why I was asking my mom in that regard, because she too is a people person who comes from a background of uplifting people through development. She's always concerned with what is happening in communities. So my original thing was not a challenge to the WTO, but more just asking her, would the WTO allow her to facilitate that perspective? And being here today and seeing the work that you guys are doing is showing me that live and direct. So I just wanted to first salute you. My second comment question is based off of what Serena spoke about arranging opportunities to speak to university students. I was going to ask if that's something that everybody up here could do in their respective countries, because just hearing you and being in your presence is so powerful. So I'm thinking, if I were a student in university and had the chance to be physically in the same domain, not just in the virtual space, even though I know we're looking at digital, but just being in your presence, if you guys take the time to go to universities and higher institutions in your area, you don't even know the impact you can have in inspiring other sets of people to take what you're doing and even go further, you know. So that's just more of a comment and an encouragement. But thank you so much.
This is fantastic. This is very inspiring. I don't know if any of the young trade leaders want to respond, want to react, but I know that's part of what you guys are doing already today, right? Although we could have even more young people in the audience. So yeah, doing that in university. But yes, please, Serena.
Yeah, just to add about how this idea came to be. Again, I saw trade as a very abstract mathematical thing that I was just studying during my undergrad. But just to share a tiny personal story, which is why I joined this incredible cohort. It was during my first master in Paris at Sciences Po, where I met this incredible professor who used to work at the WTO. Victor, if you're anywhere here, that's you. And he was a fellow Brazilian. It was the first Brazilian person that I had met that was doing something incredible, something I really wanted to do. And just having that one-to-one experience with him, seeing someone from my same country doing incredible things and truly enjoying his work was just so mind-blowing and so inspiring. And that's sort of why I really wanna share that experience with as many students as I can during this year. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think with that, we can bring the panel to a close. This was excellent. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your experiences, your vision, your ideas. It has been really instructive. I hope you also enjoyed it. And you are in luck, because this is not the last opportunity you have to see these brilliant people. There is tomorrow, I think, is that it? Another session, yeah. So please feel free also to come to their session, and if I could ask everybody to give them a last round of applause.